There we go.
Yep, we are happening. And to get the video projector fired back up is the power button?
It says APU.
APU?
APU. Just press that.
APU.
AV.
AV. Yep, AV.
Right.
Got it.
Okay, there we go.
Hi. Woohoo! I'm Matthew Richter. I'm the Cultural Space Liaison. I run this grant round called the Cultural Facilities Fund, and today is an info session about how to apply for the fund. The deadline is September 4th. It's a fairly simple application, but maybe deceivingly simple application. So what we'll do today is we'll walk through the guidelines, which are available online. Everything you're going to see on the screen today is available online. This is all the stuff that you have locally as well. It'll take me about half an hour, 40 minutes, I think, to get through all of the materials and just sort of point and say what's what, and then we can, since we're a small group, get into some specific questions about your applications and projects and organizations, if that's helpful. I'm also available all the way up until the deadline to help guide this. So the deadline, as I said, is September 4th, 2015 at 11 p.m. This application system is hosted in Denver, Colorado. And so it closes at midnight in Denver. If you're used to application systems closing at midnight, remember this closes at midnight in Denver. Also, and I mentioned this later in the guidelines, because these online systems are notoriously sensitive to what operating system you're working on, what browser, what generation of what browser, et cetera, et cetera. Treat the day before the deadline as the deadline. There's nothing I can do for you if the system, through absolutely no fault of yours, rejects a file or something an hour before the deadline when I'm home asleep happily. So please try and get everything uploaded at least a day or two before the deadline, and then that gives us a day or two of working time to troubleshoot anything that might go wrong. My contact information is there. I'm available on the phone at 733-9955. Everyone in the city is first name, last name at seattle.gov. And you see the dummy text for what days the different info sessions are happening on. Those are now settled. If you do want to come to either of the others, the second is going to be at Seattle Municipal Tower on the 21st. What day is that? Tuesday the 21st. And Wednesday the 22nd is going to be at the Eritrean Community Center in the Central District on the 22nd, the day after that, of July. Somewhere south, as I said in my notes. Cultural Facilities Fund overview. We are intending to support capital projects that will improve Seattle's art spaces in significant and lasting ways. One line that let's draw right off the bat is that we're looking to improve capital facilities. Hi.
Hi.
All right. You haven't missed much. Basically, I'm Matthew Richter from the Office of Arts and Culture.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
You know what, Esther, let's go around and say, can we do a quick round of who's who and say hi? Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm with the Wamish Longhouse, and I'm their event coordinator, their Longhouse group.
Great.
Yep.
I'm Maria Batiola. I'm with Legacy of Justice, Art and Education Project, and also with International Center.
I'm Lana Feingold, Washington State Federation of Garden Clubs, and we have a 130-year-old house in the city that has events at it.
Great.
I'm Richard, Lana's son.
Hi, I'm Serena. I'm with the Jewish Historical Society of Washington, and I'm writing grants for the organization.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm Matthew Richter, I'm the Cultural Space Liaison with the office, and we're just at the very beginning of the overview of the materials. This is the guidelines document that's available online. Everything you're going to see on the screen today is available online. We'll get through these in about half an hour, and then we'll be able to talk more specifically about your organizations and projects, if that's helpful. So we're looking to support building projects. This is different from the equipment round that For Culture runs that's very successful. We are looking to fund building projects and not equipment projects. Often the line between those is really gray or fuzzy or moving or subjective, but essentially there's two litmus tests that we like to apply. One, one example that I give is that we'll be happy to buy you the garage door remote control, which is obviously a piece of handheld equipment, in the course of funding the construction of the garage. The other example I gave was basically if it bolts to the building, we will consider it part of the building. If it bolts to the building, it's part of a building system. HVAC is equipment, it's not bricks and mortar, but we'll consider it as part of the building. One of the successful proposals from last year was the Seattle Repertory Theater's what's called a racetrack, a lighting racetrack. That's a large piece of electrical equipment that bolts to the building. And so we can talk specifically about projects if there's questions around that, but we're more aimed at the buildings than the equipment. We like to prioritize an immediate or urgent need, improvements to historic properties, renovations to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act requirements or other code-based building requirements, and something that's got a broad community impact. Again, this gets addressed deeper into the guidelines, but the Washington State Constitution draws a fairly firm line around government's inability to grant funds to individuals or organizations. We can't just give you money in order to do your art. We can't just give you money in order to improve your building. What we can do is buy access to your art, to your building for your neighbors. We can buy public benefit. So these monies, it might be, you can think of it as a little bit of a semantic gymnastics, but it's not. We are buying public benefit for your neighbors, for the residents of Seattle. So in crafting these proposals, it's really useful to bear that in mind. What is it that you are doing that is of general public benefit to the rest of Seattle? Last year, some of the successful proposals included the commercial kitchen construction at the Eritrean Community Center for $40,000. That was the highest grant that was given in the program last year. The office and film library construction for $3 Bill Cinema, which produces the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival and moved into a new office in 12th Avenue Arts. Security system at Seed Art Studios. Seed is Southeast Effective Development, low-income housing provider, and community development corporation in Southeast Seattle. And they did a suite of artist studios in Hillman City. Theatrical lighting grid and other theater upgrade to Cafe Nordo. Oh, and I skipped over the fire sprinkler installation at the Washington Hall for about $25,000. We're looking to fund projects that are core to your organization's mission and programs that help stabilize your long-term presence in the community and have an impact on those that you serve. So ideally, this is a project that aligns with what you are as an organization, something that's going to be still standing there in a decade, and something that, like I said, is going to have broad benefit or impact for the community around you. The maximum funding in the program is $50,000. We actually haven't given a $50,000 award in the last couple of years. The range tends to be anywhere from $4,000 to $40,000 for these grants. We also can only fund up to half of a project. So if you've got a $100,000 project, you can ask us for $50. If you've got a $100 project, you can ask us for $50. And you need to have the other half secured. So the other half, 50% of your project, needs to be either in pocket or confirmed as a pledge. And we're fairly broad about what will count for that. So that can be fundraised monies that are already committed or cash on hand. That can be your own organizational cash that you're willing to commit to the project if no one else steps up. That can be in-kind contributions of labor, of materials. That can be the difference between market rate and what you're paying on any of those things. And it can be pledges from donors or from other institutional givers. You need to be Seattle-based, not-for-profit, arts, cultural, heritage, or arts service organization. Groups with projects funded by 2014's fund cannot apply in 2015. They'll need to wait until 2016. And so if you're successful this next year, you basically can't apply to the fund 2 years in a row if you're successful. If you're unsuccessful, you can keep applying as many years in a row as you like. You need to have a 3-year operating history as a legally established nonprofit organization. Control of the facility through ownership or a longer-term lease. And when we say longer term, we're really not setting the bar that high. Honestly, 5 years of site control. So that means that you've either got you've got 5 more years left on your lease. You've got 2 more years left on your lease, but you have a minimum of a 3-year option on that lease, or you own the facility. You don't need to own it outright. You can be paying a mortgage and we'll count that as site control. The ability to demonstrate a record of ongoing artistic or cultural accomplishments in Seattle. Again, we've left that fairly subjective. That doesn't, we don't have to put a year number on that, X number of years of cultural programming. That's a case that you need to make to the panel. The majority of support for the project, not including this request, has to be in place before applying. So that's why I was saying about the 50%. Can be counted as approved grants, individual pledges, in kind, etc. What can be funded? Urgent need remodeling and renovation, improvements to an historic building, projects that allow for significant organizational growth, coming into compliance with code. One of the things that we cannot fund, that's in this next list, is purchase of property at the moment. That is on the other side of the fence. The project window, so this is something to for sure bear in mind. The project window opens when you receive word that you've gotten the grant, which is roughly November 1st. And it closes at the end of 2016. So you've got essentially a year, a year and a month, a year and a couple of months in which to complete the project. That being said, the entire project doesn't need to be entirely complete. You can, as long as you have completed enough of the project to invoice us for the amount of the award, then you're good to go and you can finish the project on your own timeline. Is that PA that's talking? Should I turn off his mic?
That's okay, I'll turn off the generator.
And it has to happen within the city limits of Seattle. It can't be used for non-capital related expenses. This can't be used to fund general overhead. During the project window, it really does have to be aimed at the capital project. Consumable items, tools, lighting fixtures, supplies, these are fairly general rules when it comes to capital support. By the way, stop me at any point and I can do questions along the way if that makes more sense. To pay primarily for design or planning of a capital project, so for sure you're going to have engineering costs, you're going to have architectural costs, you're going to have planning costs associated with this, and you can include those in the capital budget. Those make sense in the capital budget. They can't be the majority of what we are funding. We would rather fund bricks and mortar. Yeah, Linda.
I have a question in terms of lighting fixtures. That's one of the things we're interested in. We're at the end of the life of some of our lighting fixtures, and like our track light. Did you say that there was another project that was funded for track lighting?
It wasn't the lighting. It was the electrical system. It was the building electrical system that fed the lighting. It was so it was part of the lighting system, but it wasn't the fixtures. I inherited so much of this language, having been on the program now for only 2 years. I don't know where that came from, but at least for the moment, let's assume that lighting fixtures would be out of the question. That we'd need to look upstream of the fixture.
So if it's bolted to the building,
That's a really good question. Let me take that back to a few of the other managers.
It's kind of sad, but ours have, they can't be replaced for obsolete. And they're literally, they're burning out one by one.
Yeah.
So
we've done the lighting grid, which is the pipe grid to hold the lights. We've done the racetrack system, which is the electrical infrastructure to power the lights. The lights themselves may be too far on the equipment side of the line, but let me go ask some other managers and we'll put our heads together about that. I promise you an answer on that.
Thank you.
So is a new roof a repair or what?
That would be, we've actually funded a roof before.
Okay, so that's okay.
Eligible for sure. James and Janie Washington Foundation, we put a roof on James Washington's old house.
What about foundation? Foundation is sagging.
Yep. Scary. So we can't pay primarily for design and planning of a capital project, but you can include those costs in your budget and in the invoiceable amounts. We can't pay for work that was completed before the award of funds. One of the things that I've worked with folks in the past to help design is if you're looking for a larger project, if your project is too small, how do you aggregate it with like projects to make one larger project? Or similarly, if the project is too large, 12th Avenue Arts is a $48 million building. How do you find a much smaller subset of that project to fund? And the timing of it, it has to be considered also, because the project has to happen, like I said, within that November to December window. You'll find these professional tips, these pro tips through the guidelines. And this we added just this year. For better or worse, there are more worthy projects proposed than our funds allow us to support. The projects that were not funded last year are amazing projects that should have been funded. They are worthy, and the peer panel wanted to fund them. The pool of money isn't big enough, and we're not going to stretch the pool of money so thin as to give you 10% of your ask, which, especially in a capital project, puts you in this really tenuous position of not being able to build something correctly. You just can't reduce construction costs that far. And it means that the job of the panel now is to look for any reason to say no to an application, which is really unfortunate. Don't give them any reason to say no. And I put it here with eligibility because eligibility is one of those things that people tend to shoehorn a little bit. Don't shoehorn something in for eligibility that may or may not fit. That's the first easiest reason to say no to an application, is it just doesn't align with the program goals or fit eligibility closely enough. Don't waste your own staff time and use me to help find an alternate project that makes more sense. The lighting fixtures is a great example of that. That we can work together to find something, like I say, upstream of the fixture that might make sense to fund. The evaluation criteria. So here's what happens. If you are approved for a fund, if you are approved for a grant in this fund, the following year you're ineligible to apply, which means that I'm going to ask you/your organization to send a representative to be on the panel for the next year's round. So the peer panel that reviews these applications is very literally a panel of your peers. These are people who have ongoing capital projects in arts, heritage, and culture in Seattle, and were approved for funding last year. So they're one of those 13 organizations that you can look up online. When they come in, we orient them about the panel and the process and the goals of the program, and give them a score sheet. And that score sheet is, picture an Excel spreadsheet that's vertical columns. Each of the vertical columns is essentially either one of these upcoming numbers, or some of these we've broken into multiple columns. So I'm about to tell you exactly how the panel is going to score your applications, and that is really useful information to you, because if you hit all of these criteria, you are more likely to have a successful application. It's not, we're trying to increase the transparency of the black box of proposal evaluation. Quality and urgency of the project in relation to the stated cultural mission. So quality, that's completely subjective and up to the panel members. Is this a project that they view as having high artistic, cultural, or heritage-related quality? Is it urgent? And is it urgent specifically in relation to your mission? ACT, a contemporary theater, fantastic organization downtown that our office has funded on multiple occasions, that we all love. I don't need to do any more mea culpas about how great ACT Theater is. Put in a proposal last year for the replacing of the terracotta on the exterior of their building. We've got this beautiful historic building downtown, and the terracotta, the plasterwork on the outside is starting to fall apart. It's a really important project. It's really important to the city of Seattle. It's really important to the building. There was a complete disconnect to their mission, and that was some of the strongest feedback from the panel, is that they didn't see the connection back to the mission, and it was an unsuccessful application last year. So does the proposal clearly describe your goals and mission, demonstrate how the project serves that mission, and addresses the urgency of the project? The impact of the project and public benefit. Again, public benefit is what we're buying, so this is very important. Demonstrates, the implied subject in these sentences is the proposal, demonstrates the significant impact for the organization and its ability to serve its community, and improves access to cultural opportunities for underinvited communities. And that's funny, I like the phrase underinvited now, someone else turned me on to that, but when we say underinvited, we're talking about the underserved, the underrepresented, the underinvested, whatever other phrases we tend to use for those constituencies. It shows that the project will contribute to the viability and accessibility of the organization, neighborhood, community, and/or region. We want to open you up. We want to open you up and increase your connections to your neighbors, to your constituents, and to the people who are not yet your constituents. People who are our constituents, the residents of Seattle. Feasibility and organizational capacity. Can you pull this off? Is this too big for you? Includes a realistic, reasonable, and relevant project budget. Again, especially in the budgets, the people reviewing these applications are the people who just put these budgets together. They know what these budgets are supposed to look like. Demonstrates an organizational fiscal stability and accountability, offers a feasible project plan, shows evidence of the leader's qualifications, experience for implementation. One thing, piece of advice I'll give you, I found in the last couple of years, most of these applications, I think, spend too much time on the credentials of the leadership involved. A very quick hit on this person owns a construction company, this person's managed multiple projects, this person's been our executive director for a decade. We don't need to go into the resume of each person involved. I mean, I leave that up to you in terms of making your own argument, making your own case, but my sense as someone who's reviewed a lot of these is that a lot of organizations, I think, spend too much time on that. And then the pro tip, we told you exactly how the panel is going to be scoring these proposals. Make sure your proposal touches on the criteria listed above. Timeline, what's going to happen here and how's it going to happen? As I mentioned, the panel that's going to seek to review these is made up of your peers, the people who were successful in last year's applications. The deadline for this round is September 4th, which I believe is a Friday. It's usually a Friday. Which gives us that whole week to problem solve if the software is not doing what you need it to do. The panel will seat at the beginning of October. They'll need a month to read and review all of the applications. Once that panel makes its recommendations, those recommendations go to the full Seattle Arts Commission for approval. It's very rare that the Seattle Arts Commission would reject the recommendations of the panel, but it's a step that has to be done, and we can't notify you until the Arts Commission has signed off on the recommendations. That'll happen at some point during the month of October. And so at the latest by November 1st, you'll be notified about the results of that panel review. And then whether or not you're funded, please use me as a resource. Ask me what happened in the room. It's going to make you a better grant writer to know how your grants were received, what the feedback was. We take fairly good notes during the conversation. Every application gets a fairly thorough vetting and gets talked about back and forth by pretty much all of the panelists. We encourage a lot of dialogue around that in addition to the raw number voting. And I'm happy to share with you the raw number voting and any comments that got captured in that conversation. And I mentioned in here that fewer and fewer funders are willing to do that. And it's incredibly frustrating. You can get rejected by a funder and their answer is basically, try again. We're not going to tell you why you didn't get it, but just keep trying. And it's not very useful. So take advantage of us because we still do. Preparing your application, there are we changed this application format from the sort of typical, we ask you a 4-part question and give you 500 words in which to answer it, to a much more open form system where we ask you to write a letter of no more than 3 pages in length. Dear review committee, we would like $50,000, sincerely yours, Arthur Forum. No more than 3 pages in length. The next page or two is essentially the questions that used to get asked in that much more detailed application system. So these are the things that your letter should probably address. Some background and some fiscal history on your organization. Where do you come from? What do you do? Why do you do it? How do you do it? Where does your money come from? In very broad strokes. Where does it go? What do you spend money on? The project description, describe the project. Why is it an urgent need? How does it align with mission? Ongoing maintenance costs is something that organizations tend to forget often. Making a case that you understand that and are prepared for that would probably be important. The project impact, again, back to public benefit. What is the impact that this project is going to have beyond your four walls? Our cultural space whole body of work is dedicated to this idea that the impact of the film forum, the impact of the garden house, the impact of the longhouse, any of these organizations doesn't end at the wall. You impact the whole neighborhood, you impact the block, you impact the neighborhood, you impact the city. Quantify that impact, talk about that impact. And then, yes, who's going to manage it? What are their qualifications? Project implementation, how is this going to happen? As specific as you can get within the 3 pages. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? Jump on in and we can back up to questions whenever.
It's okay.
And then the timeline also, because there is a fairly strict window in which these projects need to happen. Address that and let us know that you understand that and that you're going to be able to hit the different bars that you need to hit along that calendar. Again, quantifying that public benefit. State law authorizes the purchase of services on behalf of the public, but not the donation of public money to organizations or individuals. You must provide public benefit for us to purchase. Some general tips on grant writing, not to patronize it all, but some things that we've learned. Plan ahead and organize both within your organization. There's a lot of stuff that needs to come from a lot of different directions within an organization. The financials might be coming from one person, the narrative from another person, the nuts and bolts from a third person. Make sure that you are traffic controlling that well. Have folks review your writing. There's always going to be stuff that someone else will find that you're not going to find. The very first thing I said was that these online proposal websites and systems are notoriously tricky and picky about operating systems and what browser you're using. And if it's Wednesday at 4 o'clock, oh, it's down for service for a half an hour, and there's a thunderstorm in Colorado, and so you can't get your PDF uploaded. Please treat a few days before the deadline as the deadline so that we can troubleshoot all that stuff. Tell your story. Use simple, straightforward language. My first piece of advice in grant writing is to take all adjectives out of your narrative. Don't tell me what to think about the project. Tell me what the project is, and I'll decide what to think about the project. Be as straightforward as you can. How's your project going to make a difference? Speak to the impact the project will have on your organization's ability to serve your community. And keep those evaluation criteria in front of you. Like I say, we let the cat out of the bag. We told you exactly how we're scoring these things. Numbers tell the story too. Make sure that the numbers are in line with the narrative that you're trying to get across. And again, these are professionals reviewing this thing who are your peers and understand these projects as well as you do. Look for specific details to make it come alive. Remember your audience. Again, I can't stress that enough, that these are people who were exactly in your position a year ago today. Be concise, but also assume that they might not know who you are. The panelists, we all, when I was on the organizational side, tend to have our head in our own organizational sand so deep that we don't often have a full understanding of what's going on around us. So assume that the panelists may not have heard of your organization before. Take the adjectives out and get it in early. Get the application in early. All right. I stopped work at 5 o'clock because I don't work for a nonprofit anymore. Submitting the application and the attachments. Has everybody worked through this system called CGO, Culture Grants Online, before? Is this new to anyone? Okay. It's a system set up by a group called WESTAF, which is the Western Arts Federation. It's a piece of software called Culture Grants Online. That is what it sounds like. It's an online application system. It's a little bit buggy. It takes some getting used to. It's a little clunky. It's a little DOS. Looks a little DOSy, if I can say that. There are three, well, there are several, as you can see up there, stages to this. There are 2 pages, so you'll need to create a login. You'll need to create an account with this system. You can say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is the organization I represent, and here's its tax ID number, and here's its mailing address, and its street address, and et cetera, et cetera. That's the basic information, and if you already have an account with CGO, with Culture Grants Online, then it will autofill all of that for you. The next page that you'll fill in is some very brief project information. Name of the project, I think a 500-word project description, or even shorter than that, a paragraph of what the project is. And the amount, I think the total budget amount for the project and the amount that you're requesting from the fund. Everything else is going to be an attachment that you're uploading. That's the only stuff where you're actually filling out blanks on a web page. The project narrative is the 3-page letter that we're asking you to create. Save it as a PDF and upload it through the system. The project budget, which is a form that I'll also open and we can walk through, that is the budget for the project itself. You download it from our website and you upload it to the CGO website. The operating budget, this we'll also look at, but this is a standardized form between us, King County, Washington State, a bunch of different organizations have aligned the fiscal reporting. So if you've done it for one of us, you've done it for all of us. You don't have to regroup your fiscal tracking software into different categories. And budget notes. And we ask that any number in the operating budget that changes by more than 20% year to year, you explain why that happened, or anything else that's weird about your numbers. There's a whole document to explain all weirdnesses. And then images. The images are really powerful. So again, back to what's going to happen in this room when the panelists get together. We're going to sit down in a room together and go through the proposals. With each proposal, we're going to look at images up on the screen. And so there's something to be looking at while we're talking about you. Not every successful proposal has had images. We've funded organizations that didn't submit a single image. But I think it's useful. And they can be cocktail napkin sketches of like, gee, wouldn't it be great if it can be architectural renderings, but not everybody's hiring an architect that can come up with those 3D renderings. It can be, I give a bunch of examples, I think in this, stock images of the type of thing that you want to build. If it is sort of, I know we have equipment, we're going to talk a lot about the equipment line, but there's equipment that bolts to the building, one good example is seating riser systems that like pull out from the wall that you put feeder seats on. A few different folks have applied for different variations of those systems and have included images of the off-the-shelf system that you can buy. The images need to be in PDF format. That sounds really stupid, and it kind of is stupid, but because of this software system, you have to upload images as PDFs. Most images that you're going to have on your computer are going to be JPEGs, JPGs, and we need you to make them PDFs. Sorry about that. Although, that does open the door to gaming the system a little bit. We allow 3 images to be submitted. If you want to create a sheet that's 5 images in one page, the system's going to count that as 1 image, and you get 5 images uploaded. So you can make, what's the word for that? When you put a bunch of images together on a page? You can make mosaics, collages, thank you, of different images. One thing I'll warn you about is that we're not looking at them anywhere near as large as the screen. Thank you so much, Linda and Duwamish Longhouse, for providing this beautiful projector and gigantic screen. We're looking at them on a wall maybe 4 feet wide. And so text or any sort of fine detail in an image might not play. Obligations of award recipients, should you be awarded. Pro tip, be as realistic as you can in your budget forecasts. Savvy panelists can see through inflated budgets or guesses. Guesses are my favorite. Obligations of recipients, if you are awarded, you acknowledge us on your donor wall. Basically, you provide the public benefit, and that'll be in the contract that we sign. Let me give you an example of public benefit. We give you $500 to support the re-roofing of your building. The public benefit that we are buying for that $500 has to be quantifiable. So you agree to give away 50 $10 tickets to garden shows or whatever it is that you monetize usually. So the public benefit that we're buying has to actually pencil out to equal the amount that we're funding. So a $40,000 award has to result in $40,000 worth of public benefit. That $40,000 worth of public benefit can be amortized out over the life of the equipment. So if we're buying you a 50, let's use the Eritrean Center as the example, where we funded the renovations to their commercial kitchen for 40 grand. That equipment is going to last 50 years. So over the course of the next 50 years, they have to provide $40,000 of public benefit, reduced rentals of the facility to nonprofits, reduced or free access for students and seniors. Any of the breaks that you usually give from the top market rate for something can count as part of that public benefit. Does that make sense? And you need a business license and a UBI number. Get for $10 online. Contracts and payment, we will contract with you and then we will pay you. Appeal process, there is an appeal process. Knock wood, I don't think I've ever had a denial appealed, but you can go to the department director. The appeal has to be based on information that was available to the initial panel. It's like a legal appeal, it has to be about what was initially in the courtroom. And those have to happen within 30 days of the formal notice of the commission approved decision. So 30 days after you get your rejection, if you'd like to appeal it, you can. And you can start with me as we talk about how that process functions. Some general funding policies, your application materials are public information, which also means that past applications are public information. I didn't print them today, but I'm happy to email them around if people are curious. I pulled a half dozen good examples of both successful and unsuccessful applications from the last couple of years. If you'd like to look at New City Theater's successful application to add 20 seats to their audience, or ACT's unsuccessful application for the Terracotta, I'm happy to share those with you. And just know that anything that you send us will likewise become public information. And because of the way that the city rules operate, anyone can request that information. Okay, some very basic stuff. We support freedom of expression. We respect diverse cultures. I'm only glancing over this not because it's unimportant, but because I think it sort of almost goes without saying. But we can get into the Settle Arts Commission, which is the commission that guides the Arts and Culture Office's work, has specifically taken 2015 as a year of racial equity, and is the office in general is aiming a lot of attention and resources at an attempt to ensure racial equity in everything that we do. Okay, that's the guidelines document. Let's quickly take a look at some of the finance documents that we have here as well. We'll start with the project budget. Okay. So you fill in your organization name here. Yellow means, and I say this at the bottom in a note, yellow means that it is a formula that will autofill as you fill in the other fields. So please don't mess with the yellow fields. If you mess with the yellow fields, it messes the whole thing up. If you do, you can always start over by downloading a fresh one or backing your way out of it. Just make sure that the math adds up before you send the thing in. Design, engineering, consultant fees, these are all the soft costs that are involved in the capital project. Materials and fixtures are the hard costs, the stuff itself. All fairly self-explanatory. The labor, that would be the labor for the actual capital improvement. And then other project costs, we ask you to specify anything that's not captured in those first three categories. And there's two columns here, one for cash, one for in-kind. In-kind is volunteer labor. In-kind is the 10% off of the materials that Home Depot gives you. In-kind is the difference between what the architect charges Starbucks and what they charge you. And so, for example, the architect is charging you $1,000, but would normally charge Starbucks $2,000. You would count $1,000 here and $1,000 here for a total of $2,000, half of which is being provided in kind. That makes sense, everyone? The contingency fund is up to you to define. There's been just as much written about how this should typically be 5 to 10% of your total project budget as there is written about don't go by a percentage guideline, think about each project individually and what a contingency ought to be. But we like to see something in there that knows to indicate that you're thinking about it. This will autofill, this will autofill, that will autofill. So those are total project expenses in cash, in kind, and then put together. For the income side, we ask you to list all the sources of income for the project: board, individual, corporate, foundation giving, government agencies, whether confirmed or pending. For Culture has already committed $4,000 to this project. Please put it here in confirmed income. You've asked Washington Building for the Arts for another $4,000. They haven't said yes or no yet. Please put it here in pending. And then amount requested in this proposal goes here, which again can't be more than half of the whole project. Anything with a little red triangle in the corner means that there's a note on it. So you can hover over to see our notes. So the total in kind populates from up above. The total project income populates from the combination of these. Total funds confirmed is these lines right here. And then this is a little formula just to make sure. Whoops. This is a little Hello. This is a little formula to make sure that the amount that you are, the amount confirmed for the project so far is at least half, which again is one of the basic criteria for the program. Don't mess with the cells that currently have formulas in them in yellow, they'll autofill. B4 is greater than A8, just some specific idiot check notes about the math to make sure that if these things are true, then your budget is at a minimum gonna squeak by. It's a very simple roll-up, as you can tell. Your own project budgets for any project of any size is going to be far more detailed than this, and that's fine. We ask you to roll yours up into ours. For your operating budget, again, this you should have seen a bunch of times by now. This is standardized through a bunch of local granting agencies. It takes so much to change anything, even barely related to the municipal world, that Poncho is still in here as a donor. And we all look at it and we say, why is Poncho still there? And we say, because we can't change anything because we're all government. So sorry about that. Just, ignore the Poncho line. Poncho doesn't exist anymore. I'm not even going to walk through this. I'm happy to answer specific questions about it, but like I say, this has been standardized since I was writing grants, and that was a while ago. Is this the notes document? It is. Anything that changes in that operating budget form that we were just looking at that asks for 3 years, that's one thing I should have pointed out about that. It asks for last year's confirmed numbers, the current year's ongoing numbers, and next year's projected numbers. If anything changes more than 20% from 1 year to the next, please make a note of it here. Your full-time educational expenses dropped by 30%. Explain here that's because we had to let go of 2 teachers. Your light bill jumped by 50%. Explain we started growing pot in the basement. Whatever the reason for a jump of more than 20% is, please explain it here. Or anything else that you feel needs explaining. You can explain other stuff as well. That is the end of my walk through those documents. So, is there anything you'd like me to go back to, or can we talk about specifics? Yeah.
I want to make sure I understand this public benefit idea.
Yeah.
The public benefit is a dollar amount that equals the amount that we're given. It's not like public benefit is getting a beautiful new Broadway.
Yeah, right.
So. if
Which is the mistake that most organizations make.
$20,000, you're going to have to give free meals, tickets, access, something worth $20,000.
Yep, correct. Over the course of the lifetime of the improvement that 20,000 is funding, so one assumes that any gift is going to have a lifetime of at least a decade or so. We're not looking to fund short-term capital improvements, and so you can amortize that public benefit over the life of the gift or the life of the equipment. You don't have to do all $20,000 of public benefit in the first 12 months after you build the thing. But yeah, we are looking to quantify it more than just, the presence of a beautiful marquee on front makes the street more lively and look prettier. It does, but that's, or constitutionally, there's a constitutional fence drawn around what we're able to do.
So the public benefit, we do your report for the year. If you're saying you're going to do it over 10 years, we actually say what you did at the end of the year, what you did for that year.
We don't require annual reporting on that. It's in the contract that we sign, and I, as the administrator of the program, do tend to keep up with the organizations. I'm out there with the organizations, going to programming, and so yeah, that does become part of the ongoing dialogue. Yeah.
Can you just review again what specific, is it mostly just buildings? Like, I just came in at that part.
Yeah.
What the grant.
For eligibility?
Yeah.
So the first example that I give is less useful, but I keep giving it anyway, which is that in the course of building the garage, we will buy the garage door opener, even though it's explicitly a piece of equipment. It's part of a larger buildings project.
Right.
The second is this litmus test of, does it bolt to the building? If you can pick it up and walk it across the street, it's probably equipment. If it bolts to the building, it's probably a building system. And as Linda pointed out, chandeliers that bolt to the ceiling is an interesting gray area that we'll look into. Hi.
Ours is a total non-profit, and because our people give, we're able to keep almost the house available for rentals. And the rentals, this is for events for the neighborhood. If we didn't donate to subsidize, there wouldn't be a house. I'm trying to figure out how. I can say that, but I don't see a way we can give away any more. Our rents are way below what anyone else would charge, and that in itself is a service before we even get a roof. And if we don't get a roof, who knows?
Yeah. So a lot of organizations, and I don't know if you do or not, will have different tiers for different uses. So if I'm coming in as a nonprofit wanting to do a community meeting, that's one price. If I'm Microsoft wanting to do a product launch, that's another price.
We should be so lucky. Okay.
But at least in theory, you might have a list somewhere that says,
I could do that.
When Microsoft knocks, it's $5,000. When the neighbor knocks and wants to do a community meeting of the block for some social purpose,
Okay.
it's
I can
$400.
do that.
Every time you rent it for $400, that means you're giving a $4,600 break off of the top price.
Okay.
So that's $4,600 that you can count as public benefit.
Okay.
If you don't have that, I would go home and write that piece of paper up. Yeah.
So I didn't think of this project before I came here, but the Immaculate Conception Church, a historic site, and its foundation is really poor, but I'm looking at the core eval. It's urgent, but it doesn't have a stated cultural mission.
Mm-hmm.
It's a church. So that's a disqualification.
Yeah, there would need to be.
I just have to look
the
for
organization would have to have for eligibility. The organization would have to have a history of cultural programming, and so if there are choral concerts or something that happen in the church, then great, then that fits eligibility. The next part of it is more subjective, and it's about convincing a panel. And that's where you want to see more alignment between the project and the mission. So it's very clear that with a solid foundation, we can have an audience come in and appreciate the choral concert. There's a connection there. It might be tenuous, but it is. But that part is less about eligibility and just more about, I work for you guys. I don't work for the panel. I mean, I work for the panel too, but my job is to help you guys craft proposals that are going to win. And beyond that, I don't get a vote in the room. And so the second part of that about alignment between project and mission is more about just helping you win.
Oh, I have another question.
Yeah.
Is there a separate funding for historic? I know I'm a member of the Beacon Hill Garden Club.
Oh, okay.
That's why. But is there a separate pocket of money in the city of Seattle, separate granting cycle?
No, there are. When the city designates a landmark, it writes a covenant that enumerates the benefits that the city can provide. But I don't think that there's a competitive pot of money for existing landmarks other than this. Anything else? I sit at my desk all day and answer questions related to the Cultural Facilities Fund. So find me, and this is not your one chance to ask questions or to work through proposals. One thing I can't do is like read and edit your applications, but if you've got specific questions about them, I'm happy to answer them. And if folks didn't, please do. We've got two things that we'd love for you to fill out. One is just the who's here, email address and name sign-up sheet. There's a little piece of paper that we do. It's part of the city's Race and Social Justice Initiative. It tracks demographic info of who's coming to these events, every event the city hosts. It's not connected to you personally. It just goes into a demographic tracking bucket. So please fill this out. Please grab my business card if you'd like it. I also brought some cards for the Space Finder Seattle. You know this tool? Our office just built this last year. Spacefinderseattle.org or .com. I mean, both work. Is a website to connect folks looking for art space with those art spaces. Either, hey, I'm looking for a rehearsal room or an artist studio, or I'm looking for an art space in which to hold my wedding, or a conference, or I'm looking for a raw warehouse space in which to build Seattle's next, giant theater space. Is all. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the Longhouse for hosting us.
Yes.
There are 2 more of these info sessions if you feel like you'd like to come for another, if you didn't get quite enough of me talking for, an hour. And like I say, I'm available all the way up to September 4th.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Have any questions?
Yay, for all of us.
Okay, yeah, for everyone.
Jackie, do you have some time?
As